Okay, and we are going. So, welcome everyone. My name is Caitlin Barodi. I am one of your librarians here at Resnick Library. This session is essentially just to go over the basic library research skills that we want all BSN students to know. Some of it might be review if you have either taken classes here before where you've had library instruction, or if you have taken classes at a different institution. Might be review. There might be some things that are new just because we did change the way some of our systems are set up over the summer. So even if you say took classes here last year, some of it might be new. So we're glad to have you here. And yeah, so let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay. Can everybody see that? You should see a blue slide that has pictures of 3 lovely ladies on it. Just put it in the chat if you're able to see that. Great. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do is just introduce you to your librarians. I'm there in the middle, but on the left we have Amanda Calabrese. She's actually our designated nursing librarian. However, she actually is on maternity leave this semester. She'll be back in the spring. You will probably interact with her a lot. She's a wonderful librarian, very helpful, does great work with the nursing students. But while she's gone, you can either contact me if you have any questions, or Jennifer Collins is on the right, and she can help you out as well. So those are the faces and emails to know for the time being. Amanda will be back in the spring. Okay. So just to give you a roadmap of kind of where we're going today. 4 basic things we're going to go over today. The first is to start with CINAHL, but know what MILO is. CINAHL is a nursing specific database. You will be working a lot with that database, but we also want you to know what MILO is, which we'll talk about a little bit later. These are really just different databases, different resources that you can use on the library's website. The second thing we're going to talk about is considering your search strategy. Once you are searching in these tools, what's the best way to do it to get the best results and find the things that you need? Third, link to full text. That is essentially once you find the thing in the database, how do you open it and get to it and use it? And then lastly, how to ask for help, where to find assistance, the different options for contacting us, and how you can do that. So that's kind of where we're going today, just to give you a heads up. Before we get started, before I start showing you how to navigate to things on the library website, I kind of wanted to just take a step back and look at our resources from a bird's eye view. When I was in college, I got very confused when my librarians would talk about databases versus journals versus articles. What's the catalog? I think that all of that language can get a little bit confusing, understandably so. So I like to start all my classes with just doing a quick review, quick overview of how all of these things fit together. The first thing I want to look at is the circle that says tangible content. Obviously, the library has books and other tangible content, DVDs, reserves. This circle of tangible content is things that we have physically here within the library where I'm sitting right now. If you're a completely online student, this probably doesn't apply to you too much. If you are on campus, you've probably been in the library and are familiar with this stuff, but just so you know, this stuff is available and it is searchable on our website. The other things that you're going to be dealing with mostly are databases. So the library has, I believe, 117 different databases last time I checked. And a lot of times nursing students, you're going to be asked, very common, find a peer-reviewed journal article. Now, what does that mean? So you can see on the chart here, articles are found in journals. Journal is just a fancy way to say an academic magazine. So think of it just like any magazine that you would pick up in the checkout line at the grocery store. They have articles in it. Journals, scholarly journals, contain articles. These articles are in databases as well as, along with ebooks, media. When I say media, I mean Things like sometimes there's videos or audio recordings, stuff like that. These are all in databases. The analogy that I like to use when I'm talking about databases is think of them sort of like a crane game that you would see at an arcade. You know, the games where it's filled with a bunch of prizes, there's a claw and you put your quarter in, you move the little joystick, you hit the button, it tries to pick things up, you win prizes like that. That's kind of how a database works too. So we have general databases and subject-specific databases. And I want you to think about these kind of like a subject-specific database is sort of like a crane game that only has one particular type of prize in there. So maybe it only has basketballs. The same way, we have some databases that are very subject-specific. So we have databases that only contain nursing information. It might be nursing journals, articles, nursing media, nursing ebooks, but it's all related to nursing and healthcare. Same thing goes for any other major we have here. So we have criminal justice databases, vet-side databases on a lot of subject-specific things. But over here, we have general databases. General databases contain a wide variety of information on a lot of different topics. So it has all of the same types of content, but you have your nursing information mixed in with vet-sci stuff and criminal justice stuff, psychology things. This is sort of like a crane game where you have basketballs, but you also have stuffed animals and bouncy balls and superhero toys. I don't know, but that's sort of how they work. We have some that are very focused in the scope of the information that they contain, and others that are more general and kind of useful no matter what you're researching. So that's sort of how databases work. But then you'll see we have this big, larger circle, it's actually an oval, I guess, that says Milo. Have any of you used Milo before? Go ahead and tell me in the chat. Okay, so it looks like this is pretty new to you guys. Okay, a couple have maybe. Okay, so the reason Milo is the big circle that contains everything else is because Milo is kind of like Google for the library. It's a search engine that is on the main library homepage, which we're going to see in a minute. And when you search in Milo, you are searching all of those databases, all 117, and the tangible content that's in there too. So if you do a search in Milo, you might find a record for a book or a DVD that we have here in the library. You also might find an article that's in a nursing database. You might find an ebook that's in a vet-sci database. It's really literally searching almost everything we have access to, which is good and bad, as we're going to see. Do you guys have any questions about this or how the hierarchy of all of these different resources works? Okay, we will keep moving then. So the next thing I want to show you is how to access these different tools now that we know how they fit together. So let me just move this over here. So you should be seeing the main library homepage now. You can get here from any page on the SUNY Delhi website by going to the Academics tab and clicking on Resnick Library. It'll take you right here. There's also a link in Banco Hall that'll take you here as well, whichever way you prefer. But this is the library homepage. If we scroll down, you'll see the Milo search that we talked about right here. Easy, it's front and center because it's useful for everybody. You can type in whatever you're searching for here, click search, and it will take you through to your results. One other thing to remember in Milo is that because it's searching everything, the stuff that we find in CINAHL, which is that nursing database that we're going to look at in a minute, everything that would come up in CINAHL with that search is also going to come up in Milo. You're going to get a ton of results, usually hundreds, thousands, millions, depending on how you're searching. But remember that it's going to search the other databases too. So let's say, for instance, you are looking for information on diabetes. You have a research project. If you just type in diabetes into Milo, you'll probably get some results from some nursing and healthcare databases, but you might also get some articles about diabetes in cats. because it is searching those VetSci databases as well. So just that's something to keep in mind if you do choose to search in Milo. You have to be a little bit more specific about what it is you want, and we'll talk about how to do that when we talk about search strategies. So this is the library homepage. Milo is right there. I want to focus mainly on CINAHL today, though, because that's the one you're going to be searching in most often. Nursing students love CINAHL. It's a great database, and I'm going to show you how to use it. So there's a couple of ways you can get to that database. If you remember the name of the database, you know it's CINAHL that you want, you can click on this green link next to Milo that says Find Databases A to Z. Click on that, go to the C's, and the second link says CINAHL Plus with full text. You can get to it that way. That's easy. Or let's say a couple weeks or a couple months from now, you say, gosh, I remember that Caitlin was talking about a nursing database, but I don't remember the name of it. How am I ever going to find it? You can click the button above the Find Databases link that says Find Articles by Subject. And what we've done here is we've taken all of those databases that we provide access to, and instead of organizing them by alphabetical order, we've organized them by subject. So it's the same stuff that was on the other page, but organized in a way that I think is a lot more useful. So you can go to Nursing and Health, and this is a list of all of our nursing and health databases that could be useful for you. And then you see CINAHL's right there, and you say, yep, that's the one that Caitlin was talking about, and you can click through from there. It'll make you log in, and it should take you right through. So this is your home base for CINAHL. Pretty straightforward. You have your search box at the top, as well as different limiters down here that you can use to filter the results that you get. So my first question for you is, how many of you have been asked to find a peer-reviewed article? Does that sound familiar to you guys? Yeah, you're nursing students, you've been asked this before. Usually peer-reviewed article from the past 5 years, you're gonna hear that a lot, even if you haven't yet. So first I wanna show you how to make sure that your results fit those criteria. Easiest way is to scroll down and check the box that says peer-reviewed. There's a similar box in a lot of different databases. Most databases will have this. In Milo, you have to type in your search first and then filter out everything that's not peer-reviewed, but with CINAHL, you can do it right here. You can also limit by the publication date, usually the past 5 years for nursing things, so you change this to 2014 to 2019. And now that we've put those limiters on it, we know that no matter what we type in the search bar, the results that we get are going to be from the past 5 years, and they're going to be peer-reviewed. You guys know what peer-reviewed means? I forgot to ask that. You just type in the chat what you think peer review means. If you've been asked to find those articles, you probably have some idea of what it is, but just to go over it in case you didn't. Go ahead and type it in the chat. What does peer-reviewed mean? You guys being shy? You've just been blindly searching for peer-reviewed articles. Okay, I'll go over what it means. So essentially, once you do things, yep, I have been searching blindly. That's fine. Well, it's good that we're having this discussion. Now you can know what that means. So let's say that I did some research and I wrote up a manuscript reporting what I found, and I submit it to one of those journals, and I want to get it published. What that journal is then going to do is they take my manuscript and they send it out to other people who are experts in the same field of research that I did. So if I'm a librarian, they probably send it to other librarians who know a lot about whatever it is I was researching. Those people are going to go through my manuscript with a fine-tooth comb, make sure everything makes sense, make sure it's understandable. I'll make some suggestions, they send it back to me, I make some changes, I send it back to them, they look over it again, it goes back and forth a couple times, and then finally, once it looks good, it'll be published. Peer review, when you check that box, what you're saying is that you want articles and research that has been through that review process. You want stuff that has had a lot of people's eyes on it, and you know it's sort of the best top tier research that you can find. So that's really all that means, is that it's been through that review process, it's been reviewed by experts, and you know it's good research. So that's what peer review means. And then the 5-year limiter is just because in your field of nursing, things get outdated really quickly. So that's why your instructors are going to ask you to find peer-reviewed journals from the last 5 years. So that's what that means. So if we go back to our list of things we want to accomplish today, we've talked about what CINAHL and Milo are. So now we're on number 2, which is consider your search strategy. What that means in my world is, what are you typing into this box? And it includes these limiters too, but we kind of already talked about that. So what am I going to type in this box? So for an example, I'll use a question that we received from a real life nursing student like you guys. This student was doing research on the classes and grades of cellulitis. So a good place to start, you can literally just type in classes and grades of cellulitis, and that might work. The thing about these databases is they're getting a lot smarter. I used to tell students, you can't search in here like you would in Google, but they're getting better and you kind of can sometimes. So this is a good place to start. It might work, it might not, but I think it's worth a shot. So we'll go ahead and run the search and see what we get. Okay, so first thing I see is that I have 8 results, but I'm also seeing this red notification here that says your initial search query did not yield any results. So that tells me that this didn't really match with anything, but now the database has chosen 8 articles that they think are probably related to my topic. So if I look through, looks like most of these are related to cellulitis, except not really down here. A couple of them are related to cellulitis, but they don't really talk about the classes and grades. It's not really what I wanted. So you're going to revise your search. You're going to do searches that fail all the time. I do them too. It's just part of the process. It's part of figuring out what kind of language your researchers and the authors of these articles have used, and making sure your search matches the language that they're using, and making sure that your search is something that the database understands. So you have an advanced search tool in CINAHL. It's kind of like if you've ever used the advanced search in Google or another database, it looks very much the same. The biggest difference is you now have 3 different boxes for keywords. And this can be helpful for grouping your like keywords, your like terms that you're searching. So if I'm looking at this, classes and grades of cellulitis. Well, classes and grades pretty much mean the same thing. So we can probably group them together and move cellulitis on its own. So I'm looking at this, and the word of, little words like of, a, and, the database doesn't really pay attention to those. It's probably going to throw it out anyway, so I can get rid of of. The exception to this rule are these 3 words here, and, or, and not. What these mean to the database is something different. So the word and, you can see, pops up automatically. And is good for combining your separate keywords. So classes and grades means one thing, cellulitis means another thing. So we put them in separate boxes and connect them with and. So if you think of it kind of like a Venn diagram with those overlapping circles, you have classes and grades on one side, you have cellulitis on the other. The articles that you're going to get have to be in the middle section where it overlaps. So it has to have classes and grades, it has to have cellulitis, it has to talk about both. The other word I want to talk about is or. So or is useful for combining terms that mean the same thing. If I search this right now with classes and grades and cellulitis, what it actually tells the database, which is probably why we didn't get any results with that first search, is that I need something that mentions classes and it has to mention grades and it also has to mention cellulitis. So you're really limiting what the database can bring you because it has to include all three. When in reality, if it just included classes or it just included grades, that's probably good enough. So I'm going to change this and to or. And so now what that tells the database is either one of these words is fine. They mean the same thing to me. I'm okay with either. If it has both, that's great. So if we go back to the Venn diagram idea, where one circle is classes and one is grades, everything is going to be shaded. So if it just has classes, if it just has grades, if it talks about both, that's fine. But it also has to include cellulitis. Does that make sense? You know, that's kind of confusing, but if you can master using the words and or, your searches are going to improve infinitely. Like, that's one of the best tools I can give you. It's one of the most useful strategies I can think of to teach you. If you use and or, you start speaking the database's language. Another thing I want to talk about is what if, for instance, there's an article out there and the title is The Classification of Cellulitis. Is that going to come up in this search? So I don't really have a clear answer on this. It might. Like I said, the databases are getting smarter. It might interpret classification to mean the same thing as classes, and that would be fine. But we're not really sure. It goes deep into search algorithms, which I am not smart enough to understand, if I'm being honest. But there's a way that you can avoid taking that chance. And that is a little strategy called truncation. So if you look at this, one thing you can do is just write class and then put a little asterisk after it, little star. And what this tells the database is this is the root word that I want, and any of these or any sort of different endings on this word are okay. That'll mean the same thing. So if I type class with an asterisk, the database will know that it means class, classes, classification, classify, classified, classifying. It tells the database that any of those endings are okay as long as it starts with class. To use another example, diagnose. If you put the asterisk after the S, it'll include diagnosis, diagnose, diagnoses, diagnosing, anything that starts with that same root word. But you do have to be careful with where you put that asterisk because, for instance, if I was searching for categorization or like categories of, I don't know, burns, if I just put CAT with an asterisk, that's going to give me a lot. So it'll give me information about cats or catheters or catastrophes, anything that starts with CAT. So you have to be careful and mindful about where you put that asterisk. Make sure you have the chunk of the word that you need. That's the most essential. So if we go back here, I can change this to just class with asterisk. And I'll go ahead and put my limits on again. And this looks like a pretty good search. Do you guys have any questions about either truncation or using and or? Okay. So we'll go ahead and run this search and let's see if we get any better results. Okay, I'm seeing right away I have 113 results now, which is way better. Looking at the results, the first couple, diagnosis and management, treatment, incidence, diagnosis and management, these are much more relevant results that are actually talking about probably the classes and grades and the more basic information about cellulitis. So we can start looking through these results. And going back to our list for today, we've done number 1 and number 2, and now we're on number 3, link to full text. And honestly, number 1 and 2 are the two most trickiest things that we're going to go over today, so it should be smooth sailing for the rest. Now we're just figuring out how to access these things and how to ask for help. So There's a few different scenarios you might encounter when you're trying to access the full text of an article, and I'm going to walk you through those. So if I look at this one, I see that it has PDF full text link here. If you see that or HTML full text, that's your best case scenario. These are easy. You click on the PDF full text link and it opens right up, and there is your article. A couple things I want to point out on this page. If you want to save an article for later, I don't recommend copying and pasting the URL because a lot of times that won't work. But there are a few different ways you can do it. Instead, you can download this, save it to your computer to access later. You can print it directly from here, save it to your Google Drive. Another cool thing is you can email it to yourself. So instead of saving it and then sending the email, you can just type your email in right here and it'll send it with the PDF as an attachment most of the time. So that's an easy way to sort of manage all of your articles, especially if you're dealing with multiple for a big research project. Another thing I want to point out here is this little yellow button where it says Cite. You can actually pull citations directly from the databases. I know citations are tricky, but we have a built-in function in most of our databases. This is in CINAHL, this is in Milo, this is in most of the databases you'll be using, where you can produce a citation and have the database generate it for you by itself. You click on the yellow little sticky note, scroll down and make sure you get the one that says APA, and you can copy and paste this directly into your reference page. Now, this is great. This is awesome. It's helpful. It'll save you a lot of time and tears. However, I do have to tell you, you always, always, always need to double check it. The nice thing is 90% of the time, all of the information you need will already be there. So you've got the author's name, the year, name of the article, name of the journal, volume and issue number, pages. That's great. But the most common issues you're going to see are just formatting stuff. It's stupid little stuff, so don't lose points for that. Things like capitalization. Sometimes the author's name will be all in capitals, or the capitalization on the article title will be different. Sometimes the italics will go away. So always make sure you're double checking those, but this is a really good place to start by just copying and pasting directly from the database. And if you do need help double checking, there is a link back on the library homepage. It's right at the top. It says Cite Your Sources. And we have resources here where you can double check. So we have our own citation guide, and then there's a link to the Purdue Online Writing Lab, which is an awesome website for all things APA format. So again, that's just the little yellow sticky that says Cite. If you're using a different database, it will look a little different probably. I'll show you what it looks like in Milo in a minute, but there's usually a button somewhere that says cite it or reference. So just be on the lookout for those. Most of the time you'll be able to find something to generate that citation on their own. Okay? So again, just to review, this was an article that has the PDF full text link. You just have to click through and then you can access the article. The second scenario that you might run into is this one. So sometimes you'll see a link that says read this now. This is your second best case scenario. This means that we have this article, but it lives somewhere else outside of CINAHL. So what you do is you click read this now. That takes you to a different page. And this is actually Milo. So when you're searching in Milo, this is what your records will look like. The citation button is right here. Make sure you have APA selected, but you can copy and paste again right from there. Always remembering to double check for accuracy. But what you're concerned with after you click that read this now button is you want to scroll down and see where it says view online full text availability. There will be one or more links under here. Sometimes there's just one like this, sometimes there's like 10. These are links to the databases we have access to that have this article. So if it's a popular article, sometimes we have it in multiple databases. In this case, it's just in this one, Science Direct. If you have more than one link, just pick one, doesn't really matter. and that should take you directly to the article in that database. You can download the PDF right from there. All right. Most of the time it should take you right there. Sometimes things glitch and it won't take you right to the article. You can always contact a librarian and we'll help you hunt down the article. All right. So again, that's, if it says read this now, that's your second best case scenario. Sometimes you'll just see a link that says request through interlibrary loan. If you have both, go for read this now first. But if all you're seeing is request through interlibrary loan, what that means is that we don't actually have this article. But the good news is we can usually get it for you. We can borrow articles and books and other materials from other libraries. It's no cost to you, but it's a great resource if we find an article that you think sounds great and it's perfect and it's exactly what you need, but we don't have it. You can request it through interlibrary loan. You do need to create a new account if you never have used this service before. I'm sorry, I know that kind of sucks because you already have like 15 different usernames and passwords to remember for school. But the good news is you create it once and it's good for the whole time you're here. And then once you log in, if you've clicked through from here, there will be a form and it should automatically populate. If not, you just have to tell us stuff like the name of the article, the authors, the journal it was published in, volume and issue number, basically the stuff that's in your citation, so that we can make sure we get you the right thing. We send out a request to other libraries who have that. Hopefully one of them says, yeah, you can go ahead and borrow it. They send it to us and we send it to you. If it's an article, it'll go right into your email and you can access it right from there. The question I always get about this is how long does it take? And unfortunately, there's not really any way of knowing. Most of the time with articles, we can get it to you within a few days. But what's kind of unfortunate is once we put that request out, it's up to other libraries as to when they respond and say that they can send it. And then even once they say that they're gonna send it, how soon do they actually get around to sending it? So it's largely out of our control, unfortunately. But if it's the perfect article and you have time to wait for it, you have a few days, definitely request it. I mean, it's free, like we said, and it could really get you some good resources that we don't already have access to. One thing I do want to point out is I know you guys are nursing students, and a lot of times I get calls from students saying, well, I have to go to work in 3 hours and it's a 12-hour shift, and then this paper is due in 15 hours, right? So you don't have time to wait for interlibrary loan in that case. And something you can do if that's the case is you can just check this box that says limit to full text, and that'll throw away any results that we don't have access to right now. So you'll only see things that you can access right this second. Nothing interlibrary loan should come up. So that's the third scenario. If you see that interlibrary loan button, that means we don't have it, but we can get it for you. Do you guys have any questions about how to access these, or is there anything you'd like me to show again? Okay, cool. The last thing we need to talk about is just how to contact the library when you do need help. We have a lot of different ways that you can contact us. We've tried to make it pretty easy, no matter what your style is or how you prefer. The first is the Ask a Librarian chat box. That looks like this. You'll see it in different places on our website. It's here in the database. It's on our homepage, right there. If you see that, that is an instant message chat. You can IM with one of your staff members at the library here in Delhi, and we can help you out. This is great for things like, if you're looking for articles and you're not having luck with your research, or you have a citation you want us to check over. We can totally use it for that. It's really nice. It is instant. The cool thing is that if we are busy and nobody's available to help you there, this box won't even show up. So if you're working on something at like 2 o'clock in the morning, we're not here, this isn't going to show up. However, we do have a 24/7 chat. You'll see this button instead of that. And what that is it's essentially the same service. You're going to instant message with a live librarian who can help you with research and help you with citation and things like that. But the biggest difference is this isn't going to be a Delhi librarian. This is going to be a librarian somewhere else in the world, but they'll have access to all of our databases. They can help you with research. They can help you with citations. And that's the one you want to be using at 2 o'clock in the morning. The cool thing is if it's a question that they can't answer, if you provide your email, they can send us an email with a transcript of the conversation that you had with them, and we can follow up with you by email usually the next day, next time we're in. So that one is available to you 24/7, even if we aren't here. Other ways you can contact us. We have a text line. Just be aware that this is connected to this. So if it's outside of regular business hours, you probably aren't going to get a response until the next morning. General library contacts, this is our front reference desk. If you're not sure who's available, you can call that and Rachel will connect you to somebody. This email is our main library email. Kind of works the same way. Send an email, one of us will get back to you. If you want to contact me specifically, that is my email. This is my main line to my desk. And then last but not least, this URL will take you to a site that I have set up where you can book an appointment with me. If you need more in-depth research help or you just like want to talk to a live person, this syncs with my Google Calendar. It'll show you when I'm available. You can pick a time that works for you, and it'll just take you to a form where you give me your name and email, tell me what you need help with. We can meet either in person if you're on campus or close by, or we can do a meeting in Zoom just like this. You submit your appointment, I get an email, it goes right into my calendar, and you can just show up. So that is available to you as well if you need more in-depth help. All right.